I would like to thank Gian, of course, for accepting our invitation to this, conversation, and Sukina as well, for setting everything up. So during this conversation, we will try to go through a little bit Gian's practice, understanding his particular and very personal response, the one he did for the invitation we made for If a Tree Falls in the Forest online program. But before that, it would be interesting for us to sort of bring back a bit of a context and trying to understand exactly what the idea of the program is and the way we sort of imagine what this overall offering program is. So a few months ago, especially, particularly in August, we were granted the Les Rencontres d'Art and Institut Français curatorial research grant to develop a research project dedicated to photography in Africa. And our idea was revolving around the idea of questioning some boundaries of what we actually accept as photography or define as photography today. So the project is called If a Tree Falls in a Forest, and it is about questioning the edges, I would say, of sight. It's a project about topics of perception and representation and how photography relates to knowledge in photography, in the African context. So it's not approaching photography only as a medium, but more as a tool to question its particular boundaries, like a self-reflexiveness of the photographic tool. In the meantime, in the development and as part of the reflection, we thought that it would be interesting to enlarge the conversation beyond the only realm of photography and to invite other actors or members of our community, I would say close community or large community, to sort of respond to what that call might be beyond the only limit of photography. And these responses sort of craft a space which is a platform, an online platform, in terms of a kind of an offering, inviting different perspective and showcasing different perspective or different takes on this particular issue, which of course, as I said already, goes a bit beyond the photographic medium itself. So the program, If a Tree Falls in the Forest, has one aspect which is more of an exhibition project where we've invited artists and that followed the original, I would say, script. And then another aspect, which this conversation is part of, more about the spaces designed and crafted by these little community we are introducing. So that's the kind of context in which the conversation is taking place. But from now, maybe we can just jump into the conversation, and maybe Suke and I can take it from here.
Thank you so much, Gian, for joining us. You're our first guest in this offering, and we're so pleased to be able to have the opportunity to not only show your films in this platform Yvonne has mentioned, but also to be able to show them in the context of Morocco also, and to look at them and try to really understand your positioning and your questions and be in conversation with you. As a contribution to this program, and your response was a text, images from the same forest, alongside videos that you can find on our website. I'm going to read that text, and perhaps we can take it from there. So the text is titled Images from the Same Forest. Departing from the idea of how we make, preserve, and construct a past through the usage of images, this series of films will put in dialogue an attack on a colonial monument, the multiple usages of a river, and an excavation of silenced pasts in colonial Rio de Janeiro. The different ways of recording and constructing the past in times of complete shift of status quo, transitional images that demonstrate shifts from bodies and perspectives which were not necessarily the West wished ones. The camera shoots without cutting, a photograph with interlaced lines of definition. We know it's a video. Perhaps that's what catches the attention. The subversion on the usage of a music made for converting a certain population, the erasure of names and neighborhoods for the erection of a hegemonic project. All these trying to bring us the question of how can contemporary images help us reshape the past? Perhaps we can start with this question. How can contemporary images help us reshape the past? It would be great, Gian, if you can tell us how you're responding to this question in your own practice and through using the tool of the medium of film essay and your methodology of work, the work you do around archives, and tell us a little bit more about this reflection.
Yeah. Okay. First, thank you very much for this beautiful set of conversations that we had over the last months, which is very inspiring, and very happy to be here with you guys. Very nice. And this is it's a question that more or less started in a very chaotic, non-direct way. I think was there in 2013 when I did this the film, which is on the website, and which is the first one that basically shows this very intuitive way of doing that. We had this monument over there in the city of São Paulo, where you have a mosaic, which is over here, but for some reason it's playing a bit too fast, and where you basically have this priest, this Jesuit priest, converting two original indigenous kids to Christianity, and that's as an attempt to do this rewriting gesture. I kind of went there with a friend on a Sunday morning and drew some painting on it. So as a way, when you say how can contemporary images start to shape the past, and I think that's we go to the first questions of what is this contemporary image and how can this be constructed. So that was to a certain extent a gesture of doing a, let us say, contemporary gesture action to reshape, or at least say that there are people who are not happy with this way of viewing history, of commemorating the past. In this case, the Christianization of Latin America, which was holding hands with the settler colonialist Portuguese project in the throughout the 15th century onwards, or 16th century onwards. So that was this monument this monument celebrates this event. So the idea was of this, which was again, came in a very, I didn't have the things as clear as today, as was this gesture that became an action, that became a film, that became actually the history of the story, which points to another history. So yeah, so I think that's the kind of the starting point of this, where I let us say started to do this type of work, which doing in a jump cut, which is the going to the Jordan River film, where you have a whole set of images which are censored, satellite images that are censored from above. And then again, the same question, but from a different way. How can this prevent either from accessing a history, a narrative, or how this construct a place that you cannot access, which in this case, we're talking about the Jordan River, which stays between Jordan and occupied Palestine and the Palestinian cities on the west bank of the river. And so basically that jumping from that kind of like not clear and, let us say, that complex action, but jumping to that, the question was still the same. How can different contexts and images can prevent and construct the present, or prevent a present, a new way of looking to the past to be constructed? And I think that's the beginning, and I think that's an important question when you look into the beginning of the film. That is a bunch of a huge territory that is basically inaccessible visually. You cannot reach it because of a law that was passed in the United States that prevent high resolution images from the river, which is called the Kiel-Bingman Amendment in 1997. Obviously, that we go on later on analyzing how this the touristic religious aspect of the river starts to play a very important role on the, let us say, Christianization of what is so-called the Holy Land, or let us say the whole areas of historic Palestine, Jordan, and to a certain extent all the way to here in Egypt, where I am now. So this is, and this is again like how those images keep constructing the present, and how this is like in this scene where you have like a excursion of 5,000 Brazilians who went there to the Jordan River to re-baptize themselves. And then what you see, that what happens a couple of years later on, when you have the president of the country who goes there to the river and, you know, baptize themselves, creating a new image in order to create or maintain a Christian Zionist narrative. And then you see how all those things kind of deploy themselves, or are related, connected. And I think this is, to a certain extent, a beginning of this, the way with how I approach those ideas, which is there is a component of a very historic aspect, historic importance, that is to say, archive, photographs, properly speaking books, let us say history, and trying to understand different takes from the same, from this different takes from the same place, in this case, the river, and kind of trying to articulate all that with a mix of poetry, which is a very important part of my praxis, narration, let us say, whatever that means, which is a hard term, but non-poetic narration, if I may say such thing, as written text, that is to say, read text that is written on the screen. So basically, those are the first components of the path, I guess. Yeah, and
what we're currently watching and seeing in the screen is images, the archive with regards to your film Jordão.
Yeah, exactly. Which is Jordão is basically Jordan in Portuguese, which is so all the research which is was chaotically made in Portuguese and English and Arabic. So was as well, the film has those three components. First one in English, which is a voiceover and basically talks. Yeah, the three are a voiceover, and the first one basically talks about the Kilbingman Amendment and the censorship of high resolution images from the valley. The second one, which is basically starts right now, it's a letter, a poem that I wrote to the river. And the third one is a, let us say, more historic-based one, which my friend Nur Abed did the narration in a mix of standard Arabic and Shami Levantine dialect. So yeah, this is kind of another fundamental aspect of the film. Yeah. But obviously through, yeah, go for it. Sorry.
Sorry, because of course, yes, there's this idea of using archival images and interesting, but you just mentioned one aspect which is interesting, which is the multiplicity of dialects and languages in your work. Navigating, moving from one language to another, or including narrated voices that draw from sometimes very geographical regions that are very very far from each other. So one thing we were interested in is also how do you navigate, how do you shift between languages, and how does that relate to the audience of your work, if the idea, if the topic of the audience is something interesting in your work. So that relationship between languages and audience, how do you play with it, and what is the role of it in your craft?
Well, look, I mean, for sure it will be much easier, and I don't know, to a certain extent, to just do like either in Portuguese or, yeah, I guess like if I would do, or actually, there is an aspect that let's not talk about easiness or hardness. I don't think this is very much convenient to the conversation. But like this is kind of how the thing was done. So like and there is a component of the chaos of being within those three languages. So when I'm home with my roommate, we speak Arabic, even if it's to a certain extent a very broken one. And the way of doing this and trying to do in those languages, it was as well a way of understanding this and in this linguistic relationship and the relationship with the people who are close to me. I don't know if it's clear enough, because this is as well a hard thing for me to, let us say, to get it out in such a way. But there is a sentimental aspect to it, which is, this is how it goes, and it is chaotic as well for me, and it is something that I have to, put an extra effort. And I think this is why, as well, this I transpose it, I transported it to the film, because that was kind of the way I did am still in this doing the film, and yeah, and then there is a moment that you really want that your friends, the people that you love, they have a personal relationship with it. When I say personal relationship, I think there is a sentimental, a familiarity, and I'm talking in the poem in Portuguese, and the last stance in the Arabic Fossa part, which I think it really does create a possible, a kind of a moment that I always see when my friends, they watch this, they have a moment of relaxation, like, oh, right now I don't have to watch the what's the name, the subtitles, and so forth and so on. There's a beautiful, linguistic warmth there, which for me it's very important. Being a Latino living in Cairo, it's something that as broke it is my Arabic, all the time when I'm in this language, I see that there is a relation there. There is a sentimental value of putting the effort that construct bounds that wouldn't be constructed if I wouldn't have put that amount of hours studying this very beautiful and hard language.
There is an element of like familiarity you are looking for, an element of also on like a sentimental relationship. Those are the two kind of aspects that are included in that. But I have another question that is sort of related to that one, which is, do you think, for instance, that the work, for instance, on archive, which what we were discussing a few minutes ago, sort of is consistent? Is there a search for consistency, as if unearthing a particular topic would naturally lead you to the use of a language or not, added to those two qualities, sentiments and familiarity? Is there something that relates sentiments and familiarity to the very nature of the subject you go deep? Is there something like that too?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I have that clear as you put, but I think for sure there is a moment that where you get, when we look at those images from the past and we adapt them. When I say adapt them, is using them today, cut with other images, either contemporary or older one, but like using, jumping from a time to another time within 20 to 30 minutes on, that creates, let us say, a new relation to those images, like a new way. And then it goes back to this idea of like reshaping the past and trying to rewrite the past when you add a subtitle, a subtext, or a voiceover, or a text on it. And then this image goes to another dimension. It goes to, yeah, the multiplicity of the sign over the sign, creating another sign. And I think this is a way, when you throw paint on the mosaic, on the monument, the monument is there, but there is another message on top of the monument, which might be erased or not later on, but the gesture is there, and the possibility of creating it, and a new narrative, a new line of thought, I think is there. And again, then especially when you start using poetry and more abstract verbal language, it's hard to frame what is poetry or not, but let us say a more poetic form of text, then it goes like the openness are insane, because you have the openness of the poem plus the openness of the image plus the juxtaposition of both of them, and then you can just go all over the place, basically.
Definitely, yeah. And just to, I'm gonna wait for the the siren. Just to go back to your location where you're based and where you're speaking from, Cairo, Egypt. I saw earlier that you were sharing on your screen the website of 858 Collective, and we've had multiple conversations about this and about the revolution in Egypt, and how, in a way, you've been crafting up your own alternative experience of what has happened, given the fact that you have this witness position of the stories that are being told to you from the people who either participated in it or saw it or heard from it. And this also relates to the whole debate that we also discussed, I would say very briefly, but the collective memory and the personal memory, and in a way to the familiarity you just mentioned. Perhaps you can just tell us a little bit about this collective, perhaps, and this experience, alternative experience you're crafting.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have a very strange experience with that when I once saw a talk of one of those participants. I'm not going to say names because of very simple reasons, but and I remember after that, I went to the participant, I said, they don't understand what you're saying. It is beautiful what you're saying, and I feel very touched about all that. And it was a very funny interaction. I got the email, wrote to this person, and then that was 2012. And then last year, I'm here playing football, and I see this person, and we talk, and I actually realized after, I don't know, like 2-3 weeks after we kept meeting each other, that actually this person was that person from 10 years before. And then this became this kind of a archive, not kind of, but this beautiful archive, which I think it's, in my opinion, one of the most interesting projects in terms of this, because it's you know, it's there, the cameras are there, it's shaking, you have a kind of a very different, broad, multiple dimensional recordings of the specific moment. And the interpretations, it's you yourself who do it. It's kind of like a contemporary monument, which I kind of personally speaking, like to, I enjoy calling this like this, because there is a necro memory project in, let's say, the Brazilian case. We have this, but this can be applied from many spaces in throughout the planet. But then when you have monuments which goes beyond the state-based narratives, and then you reach something like this, which is this beautiful archive where you can go from topics, you can go from places, you can go from months, date, and keywords, and you can navigate through what people recorded in that with telephones. And then there's a texture as well with it, which I think is fascinating. The texture of those images, I don't know, I stayed like so many times watching those, and they're long. They film the ground, and sometimes they just forget that they're filming, and they're talking, and it's like 20 minutes of kind of filming the floor and then filming the sky. And I think this is a very different perspective on to a certain extent constructing a past, or it's a very organic way of suspending a moment, which I think is fascinating. I'm a great fan of this, and this is I've written extensively about this, never published though, but yeah, it's something that I think suspending. When I say suspending, I'm saying like it's there. It's not gonna come down. I mean, it might come down. We never know. But I mean, it's like constructing a place to be memorized.
Of course, there is a history which is official on the one hand. And then we notice the biases of this history, these histories. And then we take the enterprise or the enterprises of deconstructing the official histories and stories, and to reconstruct them based on digging in spaces, in places that have not, necessarily been explored, unearthing things.
Mm-hmm.
So my question was, what in terms of infrastructure, and what could be in comparison the power of an infrastructure like this, just like in your opinion. This is a particular case, but the question expands a bit to your practice as an artist. Like in this work, how do you challenge in terms of infrastructure official histories, not in terms of concept, but in terms of infrastructure? Just like a personal opinion on that.
Yeah. No, that's I mean, using this as a departing point, you see that there is something there which is a kind of a organicity or a vernacular way of composing or bringing this all together. There is, to a certain extent, there is no cutting, there is no editing, putting them together. Even if you have this, I'm saying like, okay, it's kind of organized by dates, but then you can organize yourself by the time you click it on topics, places, months, and dates, and so on. But at the same time, there is so you have the official narrative, and then you have, but look, this is something which is, was shot and recorded, and therefore an attempt to remember by non-official humans, whatever that means, right? A very strange nomenclature. But this idea that you kind of collect all those images and bring up this mosaic of fragments, and therefore you have another possibility of constructing, in this case. In terms of when we through, which I kind of put it back together here, which is the film I did with a good friend, Diego Cruz from São Paulo, which is about the calabouços of the Rio de Janeiro, which went through a huge process of silencing, which is the necro-memory state as a project of making things or events be destroyed, be killed, and the calabouços, which were torture houses in the Brazilian colonial time, were completely directed to the enslaved population in Rio de Janeiro. It is a very specific example of that. So you have a place which is, let us say, officially silenced, erased, and with that you have the erasure of the Monte do Castelo, which is the castle mountain, and you have the construction of the beautiful postcard neighborhoods, Rio de Janeiro, and so on. So they are all kind of linked, memory erasing taking place as urban infrastructure. So, and the idea is like, how can you combine all this, which was the challenge that me and Diego were faced in all this, because we had all the fragments. You have the construction of the first public square in Latin America. You have money coming from the calabouços, those torture houses, which help finance this place. You have a mountain where the calabouços probably was constructed, or one of those, which later gave name to the airport, and how you bring all those together in a complete non-linear way, because it's not a linear history, and we're doing something without images. Basically, we have absolutely no image of the calabozo, and so that's the challenge, right? And that where you can, or we use the other image making device, that is, say, satellite images or written text and historic texts, and which are image, no? Imagining that or thinking, understanding text as image, and so on. So this was kind of the way we tried to compose this fragmented narrative. When we didn't have an image, we would use facts, and we use ways of combining them together. But yeah, I call this, there is a very specific state attempt to erase all this. It's a very whitewashing memory, also memory-based project, which is the worst of the worst.
Exactly. Yes, just with regards to the question of Yvonne about the infrastructure of, for example, the legitimacy or the necessity of these informal archives, for example, like 858, where the work that you're doing with trying to give images to the already erased one, or the silences. I feel like the importance, Yvonne, or this legitimacy comes from the fact of actually talking about it. For example, or the Egyptian revolution, there is no formal or official archive. It's not even meant to be discussed or remembered. So as an attack to this erasure, these informal archives, actually, they are here to remind and to leave mark instead of the absence. Yeah. And this is why these infrastructures are very, very important, apart from the whole aesthetical organization and the artistic intentions behind Yeah, I just wanted to go back to that before.
I mean, yeah, there is for sure. Of course, yes, I get it. I get it. I just had sensed that at some point, or felt at some point that there are levels in the way we can fight somehow the official infrastructures of constructing histories, and that maybe there were different levels in these fights. Because you have cases where the history is erased and you shouldn't actually approach it, address it, mention it. And then there are probably cases where the history wants to be built in a particular way. You know, you can talk about it, but you have to speak of it like out of a script somehow and respect that script, be in alignment with that particular script. So I just feel that there is a spectrum there, right? But I totally get it. I totally get it. Yeah. I was just a bit scared somehow, or maybe I would say pessimistic about. I think we need more forces, multiply voices, and more. I mean, spread the powers of these infrastructures, these counter-narrative infrastructures, and expand their potential in terms of reshaping. Because one thing is having the archive there, but another thing is act. That was my concern about actually the role of the artistic gesture. I think, which I think it's more of an artist kind of thing, right? I mean, the artist as a political agent. But yes, of course, we all have the same perception of that.
I mean, absolutely.
We were talking about Calabozao, the film you did with Diego, and the way it was crafted in particular. And I just had another question over there, which is the relationship between the individual memories, and what we would call a collective memory. So I guess one of the questions we also had was, we were curious about how both link somehow, but maybe more specifically, what is the craft of collective memory, and if it had one? Because you say you designed the movie without having actual images, and it felt to me at some point that it would be something like an imprint of the collective memory. Is that the way you see it? Because I felt it a bit like that, something like fragments of photographic moments in history, that if they were the shape of collective memory, it would sort of look like that, kind of an organic narrative. So what do you think? Because I used always to think that collective memory is very abstract, right? But navigating in that, the particular texture of your movie somehow, as an assemblage of temporalities, images, brings this question, which is, how do you link a personal, individual memory, which might be, I would say, somehow very embodied, and the collective memory in your practice? How do you see?
Yeah, this is in the case of Calabozo. I mean, was a very complicated process, because first we are both from São Paulo, and this obviously we expanded the problematic towards the ethnic cleansing, genocide of the Black population in the country, which as a continuation of the Calabozo, as the techniques of destruction, like kind of a update of those techniques, which came from that that moment. But that was going back, was the challenge was okay, we're not from that city, how we are going to do this. And so basically, and there is a bodily component as well, me being a white Brazilian and Diego being a black Brazilian, and how this shapes as well the composition and the memory and the different bodies walking in the same city, let us say, just as simple as that. And how does that composes the construction of this film? So this was something that we kind of we worked on. There is you know, thinking of how that place is still alive. So that was a very important idea, which became the second part of the film, is to try to understand the continuation of that. In the genocide that happens in the favela of Paraisópolis 2 years ago, and other state-based violence, which are still going on, and to a certain extent compose a collective memory that you were saying. But that again, that we were very fully aware of that, and that was something that Diego was the person who wrote and discussed and brought more, and I was as a dialogue composer person, which was yeah, that was in terms of that. But then what is as places as situation as that is so erased and so silenced that you don't even have a kind of collective memory from that specific. You have it, but then again, analyze, reshaped, reformed, updated, distant and different, but with a common ground, a violence proposed, directed to a specific population. And I think that's what we try to bring in the end of the film.
Great. I see you're showing us something on your screen. Perhaps you can just tell us a little bit more about it.
This is my friend Rafael Riger. It's yeah, just some reference that I put over here. He's my great friend. I love him very much, and he really works with this idea of a great writer as well, and of composing fictions from invented past, or you know, and sometimes very funny works, and sometimes very whatever that means, like loving works of writing. It's probably one of my favorite writers. So he did this, which is actually, in the end of the day, it's like a little sculpture with this Portuguese, Spanish. I don't know if it's Portuguese or Spanish. I forgot the name. Sorry, sir. But with the, you know, the native Brazilian or Native American arrow crossing the head. Like, I really think about this as you know, like a kind of a rewriting the, like, what kind of history would you like to have written? So I think when I see this as a beginning, you know, you look at this image and you're like, whoa, this is actually a scene that I would like to have seen. I mean, okay, don't interpret it, don't take me as a violent person, but as a caricature of a possible situation. You know, it's like, yes, perhaps I would very much to have seen such a scene, and yeah, I like this work because of its relationship with what of the imaginative, the creative aspect of writing history.
I am,
then you have some, sorry,
I'm
go for it.
pretty much sure, actually, maybe if you come back to that image behind, I think I am, it's very likely actually that these scenarios have existed. And it is interesting, maybe, I mean, my point is that it is very likely, and I'm pretty much sure that scenarios like this in history have existed. Because you find it in forms of resistance, colonial, resistance to colonialism, etc., in different forms. There is an entire history of resistance to colonialism in Africa, in every single latitude of Africa. But my point here, it's interesting because it's a paradigmatic sort of case, because it is the very proof somehow that you have a contrast between the likeliness of a scene like this and the impossibility of that to be expanded or generalized as an accepted model for history, right? So we have a history that is written and taught, a history that we learn that does not tell us this, or that hides this and puts a lot of energy and rewriting things that are new, different, distorted, while at the same time we still have captured, in French we say enregistré, we have des enregistrements somehow of events that an example for what we are actually talking about here. And it also says the role of the artist in reimagining, putting together these contradictions.
Yeah, totally. And I think this is like what I if you realize this is as a statue, right, as a little monument that gets re-signify. For sure, I'm pretty sure that the scene happened in real life, but what I'm saying, like when you error the monument, it's like rewriting on the writing and composing like a third space, a third place, which yes. I think it's very fascinating and yeah, fantastic, great. But yeah, it's like I completely agree with what you're saying, which is beautiful. Yeah. Anyway, I got some other images from some events that happened in Brazil, but those are just a reference from people in the 70s trying to, to a certain extent, use techniques of torture made by the regime. And they use they used to put a plastic bag on the people's head in order for them to speak. And they kind of did the same with the statues in the São Paulo area. It's called Três Nós Três. It's a performing group, but which as well has this component over there of trying to write something and trying to say something that is not there, but it is. The statues are there, and the phrases are there. And when you do a phrase on top of a phrase, and then you have another phrase, just probably the last thing that I might show, and then it goes like towards all over the place, right? Which is the Carnival 2019 that the Mangueira school did, this beautiful parade, which is called Histórias para Ninar Gente Grande, history to make grown-ups sleep, or stories to make grown-ups sleep. So we don't have a differentiation from So this is a big monument that we have over there in São Paulo, and the whole aspect of this parade, which is about an hour and a half, more or less, is about rewriting, as the parade itself title tell us, about rewriting the past. And you know, obviously we might think, okay, this is Carnival, but it is not. It is not. This is the most important place in the Carnival, probably. Like not in the most important, but it's a very important moment of thousands and thousands of people are watching this. And then what you have, you know, places, and this is a very interesting moment where you have all this the white man and the white settler colonial being taken out of the museum and replaced by native Brazilians, by the Black population, as to say, this is an image. This is an image from the present. This is the present. So you have all those guys. They come down, and you have all those guys coming in and taking their place. And as allegoric as it may sound, this is, I think, where you really reach a point, in my opinion, that it goes beyond the state, the art, official, let us say, academic, non-official, official narrative as well. And this is a thing that, okay, no, we're here, Samba School, and we're talking about this for an hour and a half, how we're going to take those out and how we're going to put ourselves in those frames, in those paintings. I think it's very beautiful.
Yeah.
And there are moments where you have, you know, he goes in and then they go in and take their places. Later on, you have the books where you have a big construction of books. They're being rewritten, a dictatorship, the assassin dictatorship. This woman had her kid killed during the dictatorship. So yeah, you know, it's a whole attempt of constructing a new present in a very, let us say, beautiful way. You know, again, the party or the Hafle as La Fête as a way of subversion, as a way of constructing a new way of seeing, of behaving. So I think this is like really like a way that the carnival reaches its maximum. Again, this is very personal. Please, this is just Gigi speaking about this, and with all my heart. But I think this is where, you know, it's the history that history does not tell us. This is the name of the car. So each car has a name, and this is the history of that. The history does not tell us.
Which in a way is exactly what you're doing, because you're basically crafting up new histories with images from the history that already exists, but you're giving them new meaning. For you, for example, when you use satellite images in Jordao, you take them out of their supposed to be context, and so you give them a new history, a new meaning.
Absolutely, absolutely. Resignification.
Mm-hmm.
Very.
These images are wonderful.
Very simple.
This carnival is.
This is beautiful.
Sharing, yeah.
So few people have written about. I've seen probably like 2 3 articles about, and I think that's as well tells a lot about how people don't want to rewrite and look in the past. This is very serious for me. This is really serious event, and fascinating, you know.
Definitely, yeah. Dictatura assassina.
Ditadura assassina, exato.
I still can't stop thinking about this. What is the next level? Actually, I'm curious because, of course, we notice these things. We take it to a symbolic level. We re-signify them. We situate them in this allegory, as you said. I'm curious. What according to you is the next level of this? Does it apply? Do people embrace it properly? Does it start spreading and living in our I mean, is it incarnated? Do you know what I mean? You know,
yeah.
Does it move from this symbolic world of cultural expression, this performance thing, to actually shape society in a way that this does not exist anymore? There is something very paradoxical, not potentially paradoxical, about the art world there, which is that, okay, the art, build up on these contradictory realities, but the point also, in the end, is to envision a world where these contradictions do not exist, and probably a kind of art, no? What do you think?
Look, this is, I think, the biggest question. I think there is. This is the former wife of Marielle Franco who got assassinated by most likely people who are now in charge of the country. So this is, I think, this is a question that I always put, like, what are the, let us say, the monuments for the future? Do we need those? How can we do this? What is the translation? How can we, make this, let us say, something that is part of our daily conversations? And I think this is, to be very honest, this is pedagogical politics at this purest. But this is my, personal opinion. So I most likely will be completely wrong, but this is something that I believe that, through, let us say, there is a fundamental aspect when a guy there, when he was the minister of the education, he translated the history of the African continent, obviously, no, to a certain extent, a resumed form, a shorter way, translated to Portuguese and put it in the public schools history curriculum. So that made a big difference, and that still does a big difference. So I think, like, gestures as those ones, they are very important, and I think there is something there, that relates to Paulo Freire, Biracher. Like, how can you construct ways that relate to the people in terms of experience? And when I say experience, can be an imaginative experience. No? I'm not saying something that we need to feel, but I do have, if I am imagining, I am feeling, and that is already an experience. So again, narratives that relate to people today, and this being politically implemented in school systems, and so on. So, you know, we have a past that is more in accordance to our present. It's not some 18th century, whatever, settler colonial guy coming here and saying what we need to study. I mean, but again, that's a very specific perspective on myself. It's a very hard question, this one. I don't know. Very difficult, but a very good one at the same time.
As much as this discussion is very interesting and wonderful to hear, we need to wrap up. And perhaps as the closing point, we can just go back to your offerings that you and your contributions to the program. Apart from the text and the films, there was also a reading list, a suggestion for texts around these ideas that your suggestion, and I personally was very admirative to the fact that you mentioned Samih al-Qasim poetry, and I was just wondering if by any chance you could share some words with us in dialogue just discussed, or any other text you feel is more aligned with what we're saying.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, sure. Let me try to find something here.
Meanwhile, we'll keep looking at these images. Are really great.
No, I mean, Samih al-Qasim, he's, I don't know. It's a very, very intense, beautiful encounter. I mean, there's so many, but I think we should, I don't know, I don't even know how to say, but okay. There is this one, which I think is very funny. Travel tickets. On the day you kill me, you find in my pocket travel tickets to peace, to the fields and the rain, to people's conscience. Don't waste the tickets. So, yeah, there's this idea of consciousness and traveling, and which I don't know. I see there is a sort of throughout his poems. There's always a component of death and remembrance. They kill me once, then wore my face many times, and this is how I became an article. So, you know, to a certain extent, there is this, they kill me once, then wore my face many times.
Yeah, there is this remembrance aspect that is very important.
Yeah. Anyway, big fan of his.
Thank you, Gian.
Yeah, very welcome.
Thank you so much. And yeah, this was great. A lot to think about and a lot to digest, and definitely a lot to remember and rewrite.
Yeah.
Your films are accessible on our website till the end of the month, but they are also accessible on your website, and lots of information and lots of text that you wrote. Thank you for being with us for this program, and I'm just going to remind everyone that monthly we're going to have discussions with writers, filmmakers, thinkers, and artists with regards to this project, and also in parallel we're working with photographers for the show in Arles. So stay tuned and keep watching our platform, and let's see where this will take us, and let's keep remembering.
Thank you very much. Shukri, Yvonne. Shukran كتير.